What's going on, guys? Today we are doing another character builder video, except this time we're only going to be focusing on one specific character build, go a little bit more in depth with it. Just trying something out, see if you guys like it. So yeah, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let's get right into the video. So, for this video, I'm going to be building this character right along with you guys using D&D Beyond. And first and foremost, this character, we're going to be taking 3 different classes. So they are going to be a little bit, like different multiple ability score dependent. Like we're going to need 3 different ability scores. And the classes we're going to be taking for this character build, just hear me out, okay? Barbarian, Druid, and Paladin in that order. So we're going to need our strength at least a 13, as well as our charisma at least a 13, and then wisdom is going to be our main ability score here. So the thing with that is that if you're using point buy or standard array, you can do it, but you're probably gonna have to dump some stats that you really don't want to dump. Like you might have a really low dexterity, or just even a much lower than average intelligence. So what I would recommend, I would you can still do this character with point buy, especially like it still works. I've already tested it. You can get it done but I would really recommend doing rolled dice for this. So here's an example of what like if you roll, this is kind of what I ended up with. And this was using, you can see that over here, in this video, but this was using how I do character creation at my table, except I didn't do the part where I change all the numbers around. So yeah, but we've got a 14 in our charisma, 14th in strength, and then we also have a decent constitution and a much better wisdom, which will definitely get us by, and unfortunately our dex and intelligence are still low, but like at the end of the day, it's not too terrible, especially if you're going to use your racial bonus, like just if you're using that +1 to bump that dexterity from a 7 to an 8, so it's only a -1 instead of a -2, which I think a -1 compared to a -2 when you're rolling, it actually makes such a difference. So yeah, now if we go back over here, we are gonna see this page, right? So our starting class here is gonna be Barbarian. But you're gonna start out as a barbarian that loves nature, all right? We want to be a nature loving, tree hugger, raging all the way. That didn't even make any sense. So we're gonna get our D12 for our barbarian hit dice, right? And proficiencies, these can kind of be whatever you want them to be, but personally, I would recommend perception since it's the most used skill in the game, and our wisdom is going to be our highest stat at the end of the day. So also, I don't know, maybe intimidation, animal handling. The next one, I just pick your favorite here. Pick whichever one you want. Then we're going to get rage. And this rage is definitely important for our build, right? And we also are going to get unarmored defense. So this probably depends if you're going to use it or not on how good your constitution modifier is. If you're using point buy or standard array, it may not be that good, but maybe if you rolled your stats and got super lucky, it could also be really good. So yeah, like you don't need super high stats in your charisma and your strength. So I would just get those to like 13, to be honest, 13 or 14. And then I would put your next highest stat probably in Constitution. So you're going to want to have Wisdom and Constitution as your highest stats because you want to be very tanky for this build. This is a tanker that can also dish out some nasty damage at the end of the day. So for our next 2 levels, we are just going to go Barbarian, right? No multi-classing here. We're just going to get our Reckless Attack, Danger Sense, but at 3rd level, we're going to get our primal path. And here, you can choose whatever you want, but for our purposes, we are going to be choosing the Totem Warrior. And if you know anything about D&D and classes, you probably already know that here, for our Totem Spirit, we are going to pick Totem of the Bear. And while honestly, all of the Totem Spirits are great, and have a bunch of different uses, which is amazing, the bear is just busted. Bear equal busted. So while raging, you have resistance to all damage except psychic damage, and the spirit of the bear makes you tough enough to stand up to any punishment, which is great for us. So then, after we have our 3 levels in Barbarian, we are actually going to add our first class here, which is going to be our Druid. So for this, we're going to take 1 level in Druid. We're going to get some, we get Druidic, right? And we also are going to get some spell casting. Now, our main thing isn't going to be spell casting. So when picking your spells, I would honestly recommend picking things that are great, maybe out of combat as well, like things like Good Berry, Healing Word, Cure Wounds. But if you do also need to cast spells in combat, there are great spells, that you can cast as a druid. However, unfortunately, most of those spells are concentration, and that's going to conflict with our overarching goal for this character. So I would just be careful about which spells you take, but you can change your spells in and out every day. Like if you know that you're going to need Detect Magic one day, and that's usually an out of combat spell, then definitely take that, because you are pretty much not going to be able to concentrate in combat for the most part, unfortunately. But things like Ice Knife, Snare, maybe Thunderwave, Speak with Animals, like those are all not concentration spells. So you definitely do have some options. But also, if you want to take a concentration spell, go ahead, like who's stopping you? But you just might not be able to use it in combat the way you want to, if you're following this plan exactly. So our next level is going to be in Druid again, because now we get not only Wild Shape, but we also get our Druid Circle. And these are the 2 main things that we're after here. So for us, we are going to be taking the best Wild Shaping subclass in the game, which is Circle of the Moon Druid. Because this gives us an improved combat Wild Shape. So now we can Wild Shape as a bonus action, and we can actually Wild Shape into creatures with a higher CR than normal druids could, which is especially helpful for us and our purposes. So now we can Wild Shape, and then we can Rage, right? And I would talk to your DM about just being able to use an action to Wild Shape, because normal druids can use an action. So like ask if it can be either or, because you're probably going to be wanting to Wild Shape and then Rage in 1 turn. But if they're not going to let you do that, then I would probably Rage first and then Wild Shape. So that's what that gets us here. And the nice thing is we don't need to go 5 levels of Barbarian, because we don't need extra attacks, because usually our Wild Shape forms will have multi-attacks themselves, which is super cool. And so for this next level, we're now a level 5 character already, but there's probably going to be a split. And so I would either continue on Druid and take up to 3 more levels in Druid, get to Druid level 5 before we multiclass next, or I would multiclass right here. And I think for us, what's going to work better is we multiclass right here, because I want to get these next 2 levels in the Paladin class before the level 1 or the CR1 creature Wild Shape really fades. So we're still pretty effective in combat. So I think right now we are going to take our first level in Paladin. So this is going to get us proficiencies, which are like fine. We already have all those, to be honest. Divine Sense, which is a nice little ability to have, and Lay on Hands, which is great because it's just another healing ability that we can use to, you know, bring someone up. It's very helpful. And then we are going to take our second level in Paladin, which is where all the juicy stuff comes in that we get. This is what we really wanted. The first level kind of sucks that we have to go through it to get all this, but I think it's worth it. So we're going to get our spell casting here, which it is affected by multiclassing, whatever. You know, we all know this. Sorry. And then we're also going to get a fighting style, which is great. I would just pick the one you like the most here, or which would whatever help you. Like if you want more cantrips, pick Blessed Warrior. I think Protection, getting a +1 to our AC if we do end up wearing armor, which depends on how high our Constitution is. Or Blind Fighting is really good, especially because not a lot of like the creatures that you may be transforming into have dark vision. So I think Blind Fighting could be actually really helpful. Which I don't know if that would actually go over with your wild shape transformation, but I would talk to your DM and see how they'd rule that. Since it's a fighting style and not like it comes from your eyes themselves, I would rule that it still carries over, but that's just how I would rule it. And now we get the big banger here, right? Which is Divine Smite. So starting at second level, you can hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, which your wild shape forms would count. It would count as a melee weapon attack. And you can expend one spell slot to deal radiant damage to the target in addition to your weapon's damage. The extra damage is 2d8 for first level, plus 1d8 for each spell slot higher than that to a maximum of 5d8. And this damage increases by 1d8 if the target is an undead fiend to a maximum of 6d8. So, this is great. So now we have a couple of Druid spell slots. We have some 1 or 2 Paladin spell slots. I can't remember. So we can Wild Shape, right? Rage, and then Smite. So we're actually going to be a Tinky Wild Shaper that is going to be doing a lot of damage with their melee attacks, which in my opinion is really going to help your wild shapes keep up and do damage compared to a lot of other like classes, because wild shaping does fall off kind of like in mid-tier play. So this should help you keep up with the pack and be able to do a little bit more damage, which is super cool, especially since you're not going to be using your concentration for spells a lot of the time like the Druid usually likes to do. So yeah. And after we take our 2 levels in Paladin, we are going to take another 2 levels in Druid. And so this is actually, we're at character level 9, and unfortunately our first ASI isn't until character level 9, which is why I also recommend that maybe go 5 levels in Druid first before you take the Paladin levels, but that's totally up to you and how you want to play your character. So yeah, it just kind of makes the difference of like, do you want your ASI and your 3rd level spells first to get a spell casting buff? Or do you want your Paladin levels first to do more damage in your wild shape, but you would still also have less spell slots overall by going Paladin 2 first. So, totally up to you. But here at 4th level, we get a wild shape improvement that I think... I don't remember, honestly, if it applies to the Moon Druid or not. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I think it does. But the Moon Druid is different because they get the better wild shape. So I haven't played a Moon Druid in a very long time, so excuse me for not remembering. And I only played them for like 3 levels before the campaign ended. Okay. So here, depending on what your abilities are is probably going to depend what you want to take. Personally, I would want to get my wisdom as high as it can go pretty fast. But yeah, but I think we might just want to take a +1 feat for this, for our first ASI here. I didn't actually think about what I wanted to take for this, but there are always great options. Even though it's not a +1 feat, Warcaster, of course, is amazing. And then there's so many awesome +1 feats. So yeah, you know, and there's also all the things. I'm great at talking. We're doing great. And then we're going to want to go to level 5, which is where we get our 3rd level spells here. So that's a big power boost for us. So unfortunately, we're getting those at 10th level, but most of the time we're not casting spells like that. And druids don't have like super major 3rd level spells, things like counter spell, or just spells that you're gonna need like immediately, you know what I mean? Like their spells can wait just a tiny bit, which is nice, which I think makes this character balance themselves out more. It's not like a wizard putting off their 3rd level spells, you know what I mean? So then we are actually gonna go to character level 6 here, and then we are going to get a Primal Strike, which is awesome. So now our attacks they count as magical, so for overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage, which is great. That helps us out a lot. We also get circle forms now. So this is more and more wild shapes, Shizarunis. And then we're at character level 11. So our last level here, since we only go up to level 12 for our character builds, is going to be level 7 in Druid. Which is, gets us is over here, our 4th level spells. So a level 12 with this character, we're gonna be able to choose up to 4th level spells, which is super nice. And we're gonna be able to smite with up to 4th level spells. Very, very pog. And there's a lot of great spells. Unfortunately, as a druid, most of them are concentration, but some of them are not. Things like freedom of movement, ice storm, hallucinatory terrain. And even if you want to take some of the concentration ones, some of them are still really good out of combat, like polymorph, locate creature. Grasping vine can be useful, I think, in and out of combat. Charm monster isn't concentration. I actually didn't know that. That's pog. So yeah, and then for our paladin spells, we only get one. So I would just pick like any that you want that you think's interesting, maybe, or like if you want cure wounds so you can have more room up here to prepare more spells, maybe do something like that. But I don't know. I think that for this, compelled duel can be pretty cool, or command, especially because it's not concentration. So yeah, I also did want to talk about our background, because I'm not sure how you would make this work thematically. I think you definitely can. Like, if you are a space loving nature person, you know, like maybe you lived in the astral plane for a long time, but you you were mysteriously jettisoned to the material plane, and that's where you really fell in love with nature and all of the beauty that the material realm holds. Like something like that, you could definitely make that work, right? So, because we're going to be actually choosing Wild Spacer, if your DM will let you for this, because it gives us the tough feat at level 0, basically, which is going to end up helping to give us a crap ton of hit points, which is amazing. So also, I do want to show you, if you want to see what point buy looks like on this character, let's just do it really fast. So we're going to need our 13 here, our 13 here, and then we're going to want a 14 here, and then let's just do 9 in intelligence. So unfortunately, we do have two -1s here. We have our dex and our intelligence, but overall, it's not terrible. We've got a 13 in strength and a 13 in charisma, and then we have our 14 in constitution and our 15 in wisdom, which is pretty good. But since we need so many ability scores, that's why for our race, personally, I think you're best going to go with either your dwarf for your +4, your or your half elf for your +4. And I like half elf, especially if we go wood half elf, because then what we can do is if we do Tasha's, if you're not doing Tasha's at your table, this might be a little tricky. You might want to, like, if you're not doing Tasha's, since they get like a +2 to charisma, then what I would do is make this 11. So then you have more points to work with. So then you get the 13 from your racial bonus of +2. And then you can put those points somewhere else. That's just how I would do it. But if you are using Tasha's, I would put your +2 into wisdom, which is going to give us a 17 wisdom. And then maybe +1 into, like, if you want to have only one negative, maybe intelligence, because that gives us a 10. And then maybe one of your odd scores, so that way it can get rounded up again. Or if you want to start building up that constitution, maybe constitution. But I think let's just do strength for us, like that works. And what's also nice is if we choose fleet of foot, we get an extra 5 feet of movement speed, which helps us out. So yeah, I know there's a lot to this character build, but like at level 12, right? While using the point buy system, not even rolled stats, we're already at 121 HP with mostly druid levels. So that's pretty great, honestly. That's a lot of hit points. Plus you have to think about our enemies are always going to have to be going through our wild shape first. So it's like wild shape hit points and then our hit points, which we have a good amount of, which is phenomenal. Anyway, guys, that is our Path of the Totem Warrior Circle of the Moon Paladin. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think this would be a super fun character to play. Unfortunately, they might need 1 to 2 turns to get set up during combat, but I think once they get set up, they're one heck of a mother fricker to deal with, like super scary. So yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day, and it's filled with smiles. Bye.